G'day, and welcome back to another episode of The Experience. You're here in the HQ. We're coming back live. I've got a great guest today. I'm pumped for this one because this is a genuine intrigue of mine, something I want to learn a heap more about, and I want to dive into the growth of this man's business and brand, who he is as a person, what motivates him to continue pushing, getting bigger, and growing this brand to something really exciting, and I can see it taking shape. So ladies and gentlemen, from your home, your car, or wherever you are, give a very warm welcome to the one, the only Mitch Wright from Colossal Culture. How are you, brother?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Yeah,
Thanks
very
for having
good.
us on today.
Mate, my pleasure. I've had the privilege of not knowing you for that long, but first coming across you because of the brand Colossal Culture. I remember a mate of mine done one of the original photo shoots. He was one of the OGs in that shoot, and seeing the brand come out, and at the time it looked like it was very much a fitness apparel brand. Would that be correct in assuming that's how it began?
Yeah, definitely. So initially we started off just purely activewear and went down the scene where, you know, there was very like high volume. The quality was there, but just not to the same extent. It was more about turnover, and I really enjoyed it from the start. That's where I initially saw that my passion was in. But the more I grew, the more I designed. I just found that it wasn't in that area, so we ended up rebranding and redesigning the whole brand to sort of more of that athleisure side, where it can be worn like every day, but it can also be worn in the gym. Rather than just purely activewear, which is like for performance-based apparel. So,
bro, I've got to commend you on that too, because the rebrand has been sick. And I genuinely mean that. For me, like sitting back and watching it, I think I sent you a message the other week. I started to see glimpses of the photo shoots coming out for this new launch, and I was like, fuck, he's just taken this to the next level, because the content, the branding, the image of who Colossal Culture is and what it stands for is starting to really take shape.
Yeah, I like to be really honest with not only myself, but like the people around me. And the thing was, I brought out those products last year, or like maybe 18 months ago, and I didn't really like them. I'd go to the gym, I wouldn't wear them. I'd go and buy a vintage shirt and wear that to the gym instead, so for me it was very much like if I don't like it and like I'm almost my target audience, what am I doing? Like, let's go and reinvent this and put it to another level. And I got Jack Bennett, which is one of my good friends for many years, to do our photo shoot, and he used to work with Life That Andy. And
I've had a few people tell me about Jack before.
Yeah, so he's really he sort of just like knows what he's doing. Hey, like I had such a big structure around the photo shoot, how I wanted it to be a vision with the videography and everything, and we just turned up and he was just like on it, just straight away, just knew what we wanted, and it was just it was a breath of fresh air, because it was like, I'm not the only one who can see this. Like,
yeah,
so
definitely.
it was nice. Yeah, it was really good.
Let's talk about why you started the brand and dive into, I guess, how old are you now?
About 21.
21. Fuck, you're still so young, man. I thought you were my age.
Nah,
you're young as, eh?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just like, I've been over, lived in Europe for a couple of years, come back, and you sort of have to mature with living by yourself for that long.
Yeah, definitely, bro.
It's just it's been a good
What
start.
took you to Europe? What age were you when you headed over there?
I think I was about 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really young. So one of my uncles actually lives in Amsterdam. So that was sort of like the base, and because obviously everything's very close together, you could travel, an hour, 2 hours to get from country to country. So I just sort of traveled, and obviously at 16 had support from parents, which was really lucky. And at that age, you sort of like take it for granted, and like you look back now and you're like, whoa, like that's a big thing. And so I went over there for cycling. I used to be like a road and track cyclist, and I actually ended up getting hit by a car and breaking my collarbone, which like ended up stopping what I was doing, just because like more the mental side for me. Getting back on the bike and on the road it's just, even today, I'm just like, it's just not really a thing. And I think I lost a bit of passion after that. yeah, for anyone that's listening who like doesn't like cyclists, like, yeah, don't judge that.
Yeah.
But no, like it was, yeah, no, like it was good. And I think the whole like athlete side has made me like, you know, sitting in front of, you know, at a desk working with a manufacturer till 3-4 a.m. isn't really an issue for me, like on a Saturday night, rather than going out, you know, and partying all the time. So I have such a big passion in this, and yeah, I really want to take it somewhere. So yeah.
Let's talk about the cycling, because you're playing it down a little bit here, but I know some of your credentials, like you've done some cool stuff whilst in that sport.
Yeah, so I travelled over to Bahamas to race in the Youth Com Games when I was, I think I was probably 17, 18 then. And I also went to Norway for the World Championships. So it was like a really good sort of time in my life, I think. Like, and I think everyone does that sort of sport when they're younger. And the thing for me was I knew that I either needed to be 100% in it and push to do that, you know, like training more anywhere from 5 to 7 hours every day. Like, you know, go out and do might do a 5-hour ride, come back, do gym. And then everything was just based around that. And, you know, if you're not actually training, you're like working out ways to recover better. Like like when I was with the AIS, Australian Institute of Sport, it was just always just everything about that was revolved around what was a way to get better.
Yeah.
And I think now that I look back on that, like it was a good time. It was just very much like a time where I realized that I prefer to put my energy into something else that I really loved and had a passion for. And I've been lucky to be able to do that, I guess.
So is your passion, say, is it business or is it clothing and fashion? Because I think it could be either, right?
Yeah, so I think the whole business side of things, I've always just understood. My dad owns his own business, MoneyQuest Wollongong.
He's a legend, by the way. I run past him every morning. Never knew it was your old man until I sat down with your sister to talk about podcasting. And your family's a bunch of legends, man. Like, run past your old boy pretty much every morning, and he's always having a trot with his mates, always says g'day, and even without knowing who he was, like, it's always that little, you know, that runner's acknowledgement, that little head nod, little g'day that...
I don't know how you guys run, but he's... I think like with that, he's just always been like morally and ethically, like he's just always about other people, and that's something that I've always wanted to take into the business. And that's actually some of the reason behind the brand's name, like Colossal Culture. Like we want to bring that big culture and environment together so we're all like working in. And
I like that.
Yeah, so it was very much a thing for us that, you know, I bounced ideas off him, and that, to be honest, at the start, I just sort of went, I'm not going to use him. I'm not going to bring anything in like that. But at the end of the day, like, he has so much knowledge from, you know, 30, 40 years of business that it's, you know, it'd be silly not to
definitely
bounce ideas and that off him. So, yeah, like, he's been, been really good for me.
So when you start, obviously, coming up with the idea, okay, look, I want to dive into business. Why fashion? Why clothing? Is it something that you've always enjoyed?
Yeah, I think so. The biggest thing for me was when I was actually back riding, like I was so big on, you know, because we're training 4 to 6 hours a day, you want to be comfortable, you have to be, you know, in the right type of fabric material. So I already understood that. I already understood like what makes up a good, you know, garment, what makes up...
so important, right?
Yeah, so for me it was very much like, because especially going from the Australian summer to going over to Europe where, you know, it can literally be snowing, you're like, okay, well, what am I going to wear to, you know, really suit those environments? So for me, I was like, well, I'm targeting Australia at the moment and don't have to worry about the snow as such per se, but for me now it's more about like, how can I do things differently with that type of fabric and those materials as well as designs to bring out apparel that's, you know, different but also appealing to the
talk me through the processes, because I follow a heap of people. I kind of like fashion and clothing. I wouldn't say I spend a lot of money on it or I invest a lot of money in it, but I think looking good is part of feeling good and feeling confident. And whilst for me that used to be checked blazers and turtlenecks, nowadays it's pretty cozy, sort of more comfortable casual wear because of what I get to do. And I dig that, and I love that, and I love looking into it and following people who are in that space. And one of the things that fascinates me is the design process, because I like to think I'm a creative brain, so I like to see the other way that people work their stuff out. Yeah. Do you have, like, say, a structure where you'll come up to, okay, we're going to do a drop in this month, we need to start designing now, we need to start looking, and what does that timeline look like?
Well, so for instance, we released new products 2 days ago, and I started designing our pieces for our next line probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, wow.
So we've already sampled it. It's already sitting there, ready to go. I just need to give them the go ahead. So I'm very, very much a perfectionist, and every little thing needs to be right. So I give myself that time so that if that sample comes in and it's not correct, or there's something I'm just like, no, that's just not working. Like, you never know, like a color could look completely different from your manufacturer to actually in real life. So for me, it was very much like, all right, let's get this going early and get this all sampled, and then go from there. So it's definitely an area that I really enjoy, the design part, and I think that whole streetwear is actually just as fashionable as wearing the turtlenecks and wearing the checkered things.
100%.
You can bring them together as well, which is really, really cool. And I've really enjoyed being able to be like, or make products that are like, oh, well, I could wear this literally to the gym, but I could also wear this on a night out.
Yeah, I dig
cool.
that.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the inspiration for your design, and I guess if you had to in a couple of words or a sentence sum up maybe the design or the brand of Colossal Culture, is there a way you think you could sum that up in a few words or a sentence, and where does that inspiration come from?
If I had to describe it, I'd say it's just luxury sportswear.
Yeah, I like that.
Luxury sportswear. So I just very much thought, it's not the high end we're pricing it at, but it's also not volume that we're doing.
Yeah.
Because we want to make these pieces prestigious. We want to make them exclusive. So if you wear it, you're like, oh damn, like this is cool.
You're not rocking around in the same gear as everyone.
Oh, exactly. And that's what did my head in about the whole activewear side when I was doing it. I was like, why would there be 100, like, especially because I was in Wollongong at the time and I was just branding to Wollongong and marketing to Wollongong. So I was very much like, why would 100 people or 200 people say want to wear the same shirt here in Wollongong?
Yeah.
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't, yeah.
So the thing for me at that stage was, what are we doing that volume for? Let's bring that back. Let's bring out designs that aren't too like in your face at the moment, but they're, different than what people are doing. And and then go from there. Even like the shirt I'm wearing now, there's like a authentic logo on here, and we want to keep that going. But there's also numbers, and I was going to keep this to myself, but I'll keep it exclusive to your podcast.
The experienced listeners, you're getting an exclusive here.
So all our pieces now, what we're doing with them is so the actual numbers are people's birthdays. And then CC at the end. So what it is I really like to give back to the people that have helped me and the people that are working in with me. And I thought an easy way to do that would be to anyone that designs pieces or is included in the pieces, put their birthday on there. And
that's cool.
So it feels like, it's a bit of theirs as well as, the brands. And that was just something that I was like, you know what, like, the business isn't like if people go, like you keep saying we, and I'm like, yeah, we, because it's not just me. As much as like I own the brand solely in that, there's so many people behind the scenes that make such a big difference that people don't even see or realize, and you just can't, like, I find it very hard to give back to that.
Yeah, that takes a level of humility too, to be able to say that and not put it all on your shoulders and fucking hold that up in the air and say, hey, this is me, this is just me.
I think I've seen a lot of people, to be honest, start businesses like this as an ego or prestige thing. And for me, it's just literally a love of what I do and the love of the whole fashion side. And
you can see it because of the way that you're progressing, which is so exciting. It's one of the reasons that I I'm starting to really love your brand and love the stuff that you put out. Can I ask, your time in Europe, so you're in Europe for a couple of years, you said?
Yeah.
Europe's obviously, it's a fashion hub and there's so much going on there. And I listen to people who talk about taking those buying trips and going to other countries, going to different states and being in their scene and picking up pieces that they'll come home and redesign off. Did you take a lot of inspiration from Europe's maybe luxury athleisure scene?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think to some extent it was started as just general streetwear that I took sort of a bit of, like, I really like the vintage side of things as well. Like, yeah. So over there they had a bit of, so I tried, like, especially at the start I was looking around a mix of, all right, I like the style and cut of this shirt and I also like this vintage style. So it was like really mixing things together, and I think it just gave me a bit more of an insight into what I like to make. And at the end of the day, like, the brand, yes, it needs to hit a certain target and everything, but if it's not the product that I like, it's changing the whole brand's identity. Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah. Big time. For you, what's that feeling like of seeing someone rock around in something you've created when you know it's authentic and it's what you love to wear?
It's insane. Like, I was in Sydney. I'm living up in the Sunshine Coast at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, mate, looking a bit golden, eh?
Yeah, I know, it's funny, it's been raining up there, so it's just, everyone's been saying, you're looking tan, but just lucky.
Bro, it's been the same here though, so.
Yeah, but no, so up there, I was walking down at Mooloolaba Beach, just casually grabbing my coffee, going for a swim, and somebody started rolling around in our shirt, and I was like, who's that? Had no idea, still don't know to today, and I think it was like probably the best feeling that I've had so far, because I, like, as much as I love Wollongong and love, you know, everything about it, it's also a thing of, I've always wanted to get out of here.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, the products and everything, it's very easy to, you know, be seen in this sort of, like, demographic, but I think, like, the more I can see it outside, it's cool as well. I got a message off some girl in Brazil that wanted to buy from us last night.
That's so cool.
Just little things like that, you're just like, wow, that's pretty cool, that's hype.
Bro, I had a guy from, I think I mentioned it on one of the pods last week, a guy from Germany reach out. He's like, hey mate, I listened to the experience. Any advice for, excuse me, any advice for a podcaster, like, starting their show? And I was like, how cool is that? Like, someone in Germany can actually firstly understand my bogan Aussie slang, but secondly we'll sit through and listen to, he's like, I've listened to nearly every one of the 76 episodes, and I'm like, that's insane.
It is insane.
Like, that's so cool, and that's such a special feeling. I actually had a guy who was so kind of him on Monday night. I was with my mate Jared and we were sitting down for a bit of dinner, and he come up to me and was just like, hey mate, I just want to say you're a fucking inspiration, I love what you're doing. And I was like, what a fucking nice dude. Like, it's so nice to get, whilst you don't want to, I guess, put too much hype behind those comments and let it get to your head, because then you start to value the opinion of others too much. It's never a bad thing or a terrible feeling to get some nice recognition for the hard work that you put in. To know that people are seeing your message, your brand, and getting something really positive out of it. And I can imagine it's probably even more powerful when you could walk past that person in the street and they might not necessarily go, that dude is Colossal Culture, because you've built a brand as opposed to a persona.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I've always said, that I'm not one to want to be seen as, like, the face of it or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've just wanted to create something that's special to everyone. And whether it's, 18-year-old, guy wearing it, like, before he goes and gets on the footy field, or whether it's a, 40, 50-year-old mum wearing it for a casual coffee date, like, it's something for me that just walking past me and able to see that would be, like, really, really cool.
It's cool. And I think for a lot of people, maybe sitting at home listening to this, driving to work, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, keep listening. I think there's probably a little bit of a misconception that the minute you start selling products, it's similar to this. I spoke about it with the boys on Fire in the booth last night. People think because I got a podcast, I'm rolling in cash. Definitely not the case. That is the biggest misconception ever. Like, when you start anything, whether it be small business, platform, show, there's a period of real struggle where it's building foundations, it's building stability and growing an audience or growing a customer base. Do you feel like there's a misconception that the minute you walk into clothes, there's heaps of money? Is that why everyone's trying to start a business?
Yeah, I think that's why it's so saturated. I think people are very much under that like misconception that, you know, they see this product, and especially if you get a manufacturer in, say, China, you're very much like, oh, I can make that $5 and sell it for $50. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You know, there's...
Well, by the time you pay marketing, shipping, everything, right?
Like, you know, you're paying for... If you do a well-structured photo shoot, you know, that's $5,000-$10,000 there. You know, you're bringing in products itself is actually very hard because you need to put that deposit down, like, with the manufacturer straight away, and that could be, you know, $10,000-$20,000, and once you do that, you have to wait however long. So those products come in, you do your photo shoot, you do like, and I'm saying a photo shoot, you might have to wait for a model or something for weeks, and that's we're lucky that, you know, I've made contacts in that area because I've found it's very beneficial to us, and I think that's how we've stepped it up ourselves. Yeah, but you know, on that first line, when I used friends and that cut down a bit of time. But yeah, like putting that money down is just, it's not something where there's just like instant money. And I get comments all the time, like you'll release something and it'll be like an hour later and they're like, oh, you sold out yet? And it's like, probably could be, but like, you know, that's not actually how the industry works. Like if you're selling 200 shirts, say, there needs to be 200 people to buy that, and if it's a Tuesday night and people are getting home, they want to eat dinner, they want to go to bed, you know, and that's where the whole marketing side is when you release stuff like that. And, for instance, even us, we decided, so there's two trains of thoughts that we noticed. So we released on the 30th, and we were like, people can think of it as, all right, I'm at the end of the month, let's treat myself, you know, I've worked hard. Or if they wait a couple of days, it's the start of the month, and all right, well, I want something new, I want to feel good this month, I want to get into the gym, so for us it was very much like, all right, that's when we're going to do it, and it worked with our engagement, and but not everything's going to work.
Well, that's the thing, it's a bit sort of, you got to throw something at the wall and see what sticks, right?
Yeah, and especially as a new business, it's very much about like just doing what you think is going to work, and working around that, and also looking obviously at trends and things that have happened in the past. It's not just, you know, you have to do your research as well. But like I said, I'm like very lucky that I've worked extremely hard to build a team that can help me with that as well, because I'm not going to be an expert at, like, I'm pretty much like a triathlete or like a CrossFitter in terms of that.
Good analogy,
I'm not like good at, like really, really good at something, but I'm like good across all things, or getting people that can do that.
Bit of a jack of all trades,
Exactly.
Talk to me about the process of, you know, we spoke about before, like a little bit before, on camera samples and like getting that sort of stuff in. So you design something, you make contact with manufacturers, you've got a plan to have X amount of stock coming in. Before that stock comes in, you're obviously getting your samples. How does that work? Is that something where the manufacturer will send you samples and you have a look at those colours, look at the fabric, the way it sits on, the way it looks, and then you go back and confirm an order? Is that how that process works?
Yeah, so obviously it starts with an idea. That's the biggest thing, and starts with what product you want to actually make, which is sometimes the hardest part. Like, all right, like, we've done this. What are we
can only make so much, right?
And in an industry where it's very saturated, you want to try and come up with something different, but a lot of the stuff's been done, and it's about doing it differently. That's the biggest thing. So, so it starts with sort of the idea, then you get into working with designers. Got a couple of designers that are over in the UK at the moment. Yeah, epic. And I've got another one in Sydney. So, and then from there we get swatches sent over. So I work out what fabric I want to bring in, what GSM, so the thickness of the fabric we want to use, and things like that, and they'll bring the swatches over, which are like little sample pieces, and it shows you the color and the texture and like how thick it is. Then from there, we'll just get the samples made, and all our tech packs will be done by our designers that we send over, which is pretty much all the finer details of what makes up the product.
Stitching, drawstrings.
Logo placement, also like So everything, and then the samples will come over. Because I'm a perfectionist, we haven't really had to change too much because I sit on it so long that I'm just like, oh, usually it comes in, it's pretty close to spot on, which is I'm like been lucky with. But then after the sample, if it's close enough, we can start doing a couple of photo shoots and things like that. But if it has to be changed, like for instance, our basketball shorts last time, we actually had the logo all over the back of them.
Yeah.
And what we noticed was if you wore a shirt and it was like hung low, you couldn't actually see the logo.
Yeah.
But also that sports mesh material like was very flimsy, and so it sort of just took away and it just looked crinkled. It just didn't look right. So we changed that and little things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you sort of, it's usually 3 to 4 weeks for our bulk orders to be made.
Yeah.
And then we'll get them in and get them all out to customers, and at the moment it's been really good.
That's sick, because like you've got something on that sample today and it looks fucking epic. I was like, where are they from? And he was like, it's ours. And I'm like, yeah, I'm about that. I dig that.
Yeah.
It's so cool, man. It's such an exciting thing because you literally see an idea transform over time, right? And become something really exciting. Talk to me about you spoke before, like you've assembled a really nice team. I guess a two-pointed question here. Do you have a mentor within the business or fashion space that you go back to for these, I guess, to clarify that you're on the right track, but also do you have an inspiration or a number of inspirations in the fashion and fitness space that you kind of draw from?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, like you'd be silly to not only look at people in the same space as you. You know, companies like P Nation, Earl's Collection, like they're doing some amazing things, and you know, there's no need to take away from that. Like you both are doing, you know, very similar streetwear sort of style, and it's cool. Like, you know, eventually I hope they're looking at our stuff and getting ideas to do their own things, you know.
Bro, I don't think it's, if not already, very far off at all.
Yeah, and like, well, hopefully. And I guess the mentor side of things, so my like step uncle is actually Ian Thorpe.
Oh wow.
Swimmer. So I sort of just reached out, and I like obviously pretty close with him anyway. And I think
your sis maybe told me this, because that's ringing a bell now. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just so on board. Like he's sponsored with Adidas. Like he's been with them for years, and you know it's pretty cool because like, you know, I turned up to his place one time and he literally was like, I don't know, it was like 7 a.m. I was like, all right, I need to like ask questions, I need to get things going. And I rocked up and he's just getting out of bed, and you know, he's rocking up with these Adidas pajamas, and I'm like, do they even make them? And he's like, yeah, no, not really. And I was like, you know, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Like,
that's sick, yeah.
Yeah, so he's been a really big mentor for me, and I've been super lucky. He doesn't actually, in terms of the whole fashion side, he's not like really hands-on because, you know, he's got his own things going on, and also like he can't really be with Adidas, like that's his primary area.
Yeah.
But we've been lucky. He lives with a designer, and that designer helped us out a lot, like insane amount. And
that's so good.
It was very much like a thing of they pretty much like helped me identify what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
In terms of the whole rebrand and the vision, I had it there. I just needed to be like pushed and shown like, all right, this is the idea. And it literally just took them to show me like, you know, a bit of fashion from overseas, looking at big celebrities, things like that, for me to be like, that's what I've been trying to do.
You know who seems pretty prevalent in the overseas market and is quite expensive over in the US? Daniel Patrick.
Oh, Daniel Patrick.
He's an Aussie dude too, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah, I've had a look at a fair bit of his stuff. I haven't actually gone to his products to like get any visions or anything, but I have. Yeah. I really do like his things. Like it's just.
Well, he done a collab with James Harden, which is pretty sick.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's the sort of thing that I definitely look into. Yeah. Like it's like a collaboration with somebody like that would be insane.
Insane, right?
Yeah. Like, insane. It's not even a thing of like wanting to, you know, I'd pay them to do that. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's cool. Credibility, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also just imagine being able to be like, oh yeah, you know, like this person, for instance, like, you know, they're wearing our gear. We've made product for them that they like. And
Yeah,
that was the biggest thing with our influencers from even this line. They came back, and I was very big on, well, you guys are the first people to see this and wear it, so I want proper feedback. I don't want, you know.
Not the old blasé, lovey-dovey feedback that makes you feel good.
Really,
No, it doesn't fly off the shelves, eh?
Mm-mm.
Talk to me about, obviously we've spoken heaps about the vision, branding or design. I want to dive into branding and marketing because you can't sell a secret. And as good as your product is, if no one knows about it, it just doesn't sell right. So how much of the business is organic in terms of its social growth and the content you put out? But how much do you also look at like your influencer marketing, your paid ads? Is there a real diversity or a mix in this?
Yeah, so we spent a lot, like that was one of the big areas that I looked at after the first line. Because we didn't really do too much of it. That was also to do with the budget, things like that as well.
Yeah.
And there are some influencers out there who, you know, they're asking for $10, $15, $20,000 for a post, or you know, even more, like it depending on how big they are. But so it's, for us, it's very important that we're using not only influencers that are in line with our brand image, but also are doing it for the right reasons.
Can I ask a quick question on that and interject there? How do you know that an influencer, let's say for example, person X has so many followers on Instagram, following can sometimes glorify the actual reach or engagement they have, right?
Yeah.
So how do you pick people that say have the right engagement to make sure that product in a picture is going to translate to actual, you know, people coming across to your website, to your socials?
Yeah, so for us it was very big that we reached out to a fair few influencers and their managers more so, and that was more to see how their engagement was, because there was actually a couple that had like 100, 200,000 followers who had like, I don't know, 500 likes on their posts and like one comment. And for us, that engagement is obviously crucial. And if there's being that, if the money's being thrown at that to, you know, get a result, that's obviously really important. So the girl, like Antonia that we use, she, for instance, has only had Instagram for 9 months. She was our main influencer, and she, like, I think she got 10,000 likes or 11,000 likes on the first day that she put out post up, which was, like, she obviously looked amazing, but good engagement. Yeah,
real engagement. It's so important. And in terms of your marketing and your branding, you see, you know, I've followed guys like the YKTR crew who are doing some pretty cool stuff here in Australia, and they're great at creating brand and story.
Yeah.
How much of that are you sort of diving into? Are you looking to create, I guess, a story behind Colossal Culture and market the story as well as the product, or is that something that for you is not your cup of tea?
No, definitely. Like, eventually I'd love to build on actually including people. Like, obviously, like I said, with the brand name, like getting a culture together where people, so it might literally be like, just, I've got so many different ideas thrown around, and I just, you know, sort of want to keep them in my back pocket. But I think that...
don't give away any exclusives.
But the engagement side with other people is obviously really important, and I would love eventually to have a podcast. I might get you on.
Well. Epic, bro, epic.
No,
I honestly think... okay, I say this with a grain of salt, so don't do what I did and leave your job to start a podcast if you're not really passionate about it. But because it is very fucking hard to build an audience and to monetize it and do all those sort of things. But I think in someone like your position, or, you know, or if you're very passionate about it and you want to story tell, I think it's a huge asset. It's literally an opportunity for you to create long form content, tell a story, build a brand, whether it be personally or for your products that you sell, and allow people to become attached to that. I'm still blown by the fact that I can get incredible guests in here who have got, like, I've had people who have got 500k followers and like insane followings on the show, but then still sometimes, like, I put out an episode where it's just me talking shit for 20 minutes about what's happening in my life and just being honest and vulnerable, and I'll get more listens on those episodes, which blows my mind. But people start to invest in your story when they start to get to know you, and so I think for someone like you, like, insane opportunity.
And
I would
like,
listen.
Yeah.
Because I'm interested in what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like there's not actually that many people in the industry that are talking about one of the big things I'd love to help people. We made so many mistakes at the start. I think I blew like $15,000-$20,000 on you trying to use an Australian manufacturer at the start.
Yeah.
And literally blew it. I mean, like we had the whole startup cost, the whole process, and didn't do one bulk order.
Yeah.
So there's no turnaround. So it was, that was a big eye opener for me. But that was also like one thing that I know that I'll never make that mistake again.
I reckon you got to make those mistakes, right,
100%.
to appreciate the value of a dollar in business.
Yeah.
Like for me, I can definitely look back and go, I've made. There's so many things that I wish I knew, and like I get a lot of people who I sit face to face with for a coffee or do a phone call or a Zoom call with, who want to start a podcast, and they're either from the area or they've listened to the show. And there's so many things I just wish I knew from the beginning. Yeah. Like if you launch with 3 or more episodes, it does better in the algorithm.
Yeah.
If you get more ratings and reviews in the first 12 weeks on Apple Podcasts, good chance you get pushed in new and noteworthy on the browse page. All those things where it's like, if you know that, massive leg up at the beginning. 100%. I just didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my fault for not researching enough, but I didn't start for this to be an incredible business venture. I started because I love telling stories.
But that's where as well you can use that as something to mentor others to do
100%.
And like even going back to that point where you were saying that you left your job to start this and everything, like I was working in finance. I was doing mortgage broking as well. Yeah. And, I'm massive on doing things that you love, and I think I'm lucky as well though. I am young, like it's not as easy if you have a mortgage, things like that. But for me, it was very much of I'm sitting here 10-12 hour days, every day, and coming in on weekends, and I'm not against that. Like I'm working probably just as hard right now, but it wasn't on something I loved.
Yeah.
And
it's different, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm very big on like if you do something, you have to love it, because even in terms of mortgage broking, you have to be so connected with the client and the people, and that's what I want to get to now with the clothing. I want to build more of a connection with the clients, not just, oh, here's a product, buy it.
Yeah.
So that's not like, even in terms of how we try and talk to people on social media, there's like 2 trains of thought. So there's like that whole Vogue side where you like talk down to people. You're saying like, buy this product, it's good, like you're telling them. Or you're like a Cosmo side where you're literally saying to them like, oh, like it's almost like a best friend, like, oh, I really like this product, these are the reasons why, and oh, if you'd like to, like, get online and be able to buy it for yourself. So
is that more your vibe?
Definitely the Cosmo side, like, and I never want to change that. Doesn't matter how big we get, we're like, we want to connect with people. That's the biggest thing for us. I really like, and if somebody says to me, oh, I don't like this about the product, I'm like, I'll love that feedback more than if they said like, oh, this product's like perfect. I wouldn't change anything. Obviously at the end of the day, you want to get to that point. Yeah. If it is perfect, then cool.
Here's the thing, right? Probably one of my favorite videos I've ever watched within the fashion space is, do you know Uber Butler from Vice?
Yeah,
the reporter?
Yeah.
Have you seen his video where he done the Giorgio Paviani Paris Fashion Week thing? So if you haven't watched it, highly advise, like you just go to YouTube and search Uber Butler, which is OOBAH Butler, and it's Paris Fashion Week, how he conned his way into Paris Fashion Week. So we went to the markets in somewhere around London, wherever he's from. He found they've got all those mock-up brands in the markets that are like a Louis or a Gucci takeoff, and there was one brand that wasn't as much of a takeoff, but it was called Giorgio Paviani. So obviously a bit of Armani inspiration in there, but it was purely like denim in just heaps of different colours, and just really like straight, no distresses, like really plain, simple denim, just huge colour ranges. And he's like, I actually quite liked the feel of it. It was a good product. You could tell it was a decent quality, even though it was at the market. So he had an idea to take the brand, own the identity of Giorgio Paviani, because he couldn't find an actual human being that was that brand or that identity, and take it to the Paris Fashion Week. So he did, right? So he basically made a website, built a profile.
No way.
Got a ticket to Paris Fashion Week. It's fucking insane when you watch it, right? And he started to like change these clothes. So he would cut them, distress them, put holes in them, cut sleeves off things, make jeans into shorts. Goes to Paris Fashion Week, starts walking around with the cards, Giorgio Paviani, giving these cards out, building an identity. Then he meets this dude, he's a male model at Paris Fashion Week, and he goes, I'd love to see you in these red jeans. Guy puts them on, comes out, he's rolled the cuffs up, and he's like, I love these. And like, so they start taking photos. He gets invited to all these parties. There's people walking around his brand that weekend. Brand takes off. So he goes, well, I've got a website and now I guess a bit of brand identity. Yeah. I need to find out who actually owns this because I feel like I need to give it to him. So he found this guy who was just running like a huge amount of clothing product out of a store near the markets. And he created the brand like, it was over 10 years ago, does a heap of range of colours and it was just good quality denim but it wasn't super fashionable. And so he done a big photo shoot, made it very like new age denim, very colourful. And basically gave him this website with all this stuff and was like, kind of, you got this brand now, run with it. But the thing that was most fascinating to me was you take something that most people would have turned their nose up about at Paris Fashion Week because it was a market product. Yeah. You give it this level of exclusivity with branding and all of a sudden people will pay a fortune for it. And so the one thing I say to people all the time is what I've learned, especially as I've walked away from steady, stable income to build a show or a platform, if someone's building something and you believe in the ethic and the story behind the brand, support it. Yeah. Because it means far more than a label does. And I feel like we're moving and transitioning into a way of life now in 2021 where the ethic and personality of a business or a brand means more than the label on it. And that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Going back on that point, I think it's really hard to see sometimes that influencers who have those 500,000 plus, they're the ones that when you start the business, you're like, that's why there's that misconception that it's just straight money. Because they will bring out a product and they will sell. They will sell because they've got 500,000 followers. That's one big thing that I'm also big on though, that just because you have followers doesn't mean you have buyers. It's a big difference.
Yeah, definitely.
And with those people...
Well, it's free to watch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It costs money to bring in a product.
Yeah, exactly. And with those guys, they're lucky that they do have that interaction and they have those people that do want to buy things. And all it is after somebody has it, if it's good enough quality, the word of mouth is where it's at. That's what's going to sell the product. And I'm very confident in our products. And that's why for me, it's like it'll be a slow growth, but I know that it will slowly get there, and as we bring out more products, that's one of the obviously big things as well. That's where I hope it keeps growing.
So your business at the moment is purely drops and launches, isn't it? So like you'll drop a product, limited amount, and once that sells out, it sells out until you've got product coming next drop. Yeah. So is that correct? Yeah, that's the way that most brands start in this modern age.
Yeah, and so we tried to change it this line, and it will change after this, but we've released multiple amount of products. So this line was 9 products we dropped at the same time. Yeah. Whereas from here, what I'm thinking about doing is actually dropping individual pieces. Yeah. So that it's not as long between the drops, because the more products you bring out, the longer you need between them.
Does that keep marketing momentum a little better for
definitely.
you?
And the content, you send it out to an influencer, they'll take a couple of photos, send it back, or we've got something to put on our Instagram, or even just get our photographers to put it up, or it doesn't even need to be models. That was one thing that I found really, really amazing about the whole Gymshark vibe that they have. Yeah. Or that
Ben Francis and Lewis Morgan done very well with that, didn't they?
Yeah, and they literally have people, just general people, that will look at their Instagram and go, oh, right, I can see the color palette, color scheme is it might be a blue wall. All right, well, I'm going to get some Gymshark gear and I'm going to stand in front of a blue wall I'm going to do a workout in front of a blue wall and post it in hopes that they put that on their social media. Yeah. And I'm like, that's cool. If they're putting that much effort in, of course we're going to put them up. You know what I mean? That's pretty insane. So, that was cool to learn, and I think they're $1 billion company now.
Insane, right? Yeah. So you've got, like, the way I see them is you've got, like, your Nikes, your Adidas, those brands that are absolute paramount of the fitness space and the fitness apparel space, and to a degree, some streetwear.
Yeah.
And then Gymshark's kind of hot on the heels, but they're not there. They're not billions and billions of dollars worth. They're now a $1 billion company, though.
Yeah.
And
I think that comes back to that whole activewear side, where
Yeah.
it's seen as, you know, bodybuilders wear it, purely active people wear it,
yeah,
rather than just the everyday person.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people haven't even heard of Gymshark.
yeah, insane.
Yeah.
Insane. If you're not in the fitness space, you don't know.
No, exactly. Yeah.
It's I remember their first products coming out, and similar to what we've spoken about here with you today, like their first products come out, and like there were some pieces that I liked, but it was kind of like, it was very like gym bro bodybuilder stuff.
Yeah.
And like they've really transformed their product and found, I guess, what works for them, similar to what you're saying you guys have done now. And you can see that your audience appreciates that. Like, I've watched your social following grow. Nice little following now. Like, starting to get some people behind the brand, which is exciting because it gives you that organic reach immediately as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your business hopes and plans in your future for both Colossal Culture, but also for Mitch Wright, because I'm like, as someone who's driven to succeed in business and wants to find avenues to succeed and explore and see what you're made of and see what your business potential is, can you see yourself in future pivoting from Colossal Culture into another area of business as well? And what are your plans for the current brand?
Yeah, definitely. So at the moment, obviously my sights are on Colossal, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And for at the moment, it's really just about growing it for us and bringing out products that I really like and what obviously our audience likes as well. Like, that's one big thing that, you know, if people message us and say, I really want you to bring out this product, well, that's obviously going to be taken into consideration.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, from there, I'd obviously like to grow the brand as much as I can, and it's not something that I want to keep on a small scale, if I'm being honest. And but it's also not something that I don't want to keep it on a small scale in terms of the monetary wise. It's more just the whole thing of, I want to make this like an everyday, you know, that everyone knows about. And I think that there's definitely potential there with some of the ideas that we've got coming out. And from there, I would love to eventually obviously have that keep up and running with a bigger team, you know, have our own office, things like that. I've obviously got big goals and dreams for that. Like, see the YKTR boys, like you were talking about before, like their office just looks insane.
Bro, such a vibe, eh?
Yeah.
Such a vibe. And you can feel the energy between those boys. Obviously, I've spent time with... when I had Ice on the show, he was over Zoom, but I've spent time with Simi and Scope at their house, and you can see like the vibe between those guys. Yeah. And how much energy there is there, but also the opportunity where, you know, if you work hard and you're dedicated to your craft, there's an opportunity there within that brand to grow, to glow, and to be a part of something that's pretty cool and special in its early stages as it grows and matures. And I can see that with you, man. Yeah,
and that's why I like involving people, because it does grow that vibe. And as well as that, I could look at something and be like, oh, I love that, and then other people will be like, oh no. And so you sort of like bounce ideas, and like I think that's really important. And those guys, I'm sure they do the same. Like, you know, all of them would get together and, oh man, like I love that, don't like that. You like see them like there's like, oh, I love their clothes. Like, I think they're awesome.
They've done a very good job with their content, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. It's very specialized towards their area and their target audience, and
that's one thing I feel like they really understand. They really understand their target audience and not really too fussed with anyone else.
No.
Who's your target audience?
For us, it's generally the everyday sort of person. I mean, it doesn't need to be like a bodybuilder. It doesn't also need to be, you know, just a person that goes to work every day. But see, like for them, it would be, you know, I'd assume it's like that whole footy scene. Yeah. And that's smart. They've got like Corey Norman there as well. And for us, I think it's very much an area that we will grow, and we will like develop that specific target audience.
Yeah.
And I don't really like to narrow it at such a, like people ask that a lot, and it's not something that I want to narrow. Obviously we know where we're trying to take that and what audience we're trying to take that, but I don't like to narrow it down to a single person or to a single
age or demographic.
No, because I feel like our stuff doesn't need to be like that. Like, I'm not bringing out product, like, especially this last line that we did, they're very neutral colors, very basic design, so it's not too out there, it's nothing like that. And I definitely know that I want to keep it between that, 16 to 18 year olds up to like the 35. And we want to keep the price range. Like someone like P Nation is a really big influence on myself. Like I really like their sort of scene that they do and how they've taken things. And I just think that they're a bit older, like their demographic's a little bit older at the moment. Yeah. And I think we're very similar to them, just on the younger sort of side.
Can I say, with PE Nation, right, so obviously Pip Edwards, genius. Never heard of her, never heard of the brand until she went on Isaac John's podcast. Listened to it, thought great app, really cool business brain on that chick, and seems like she's a bit of a vibe too. And then I swear to God, it's something with branding. This is the power of branding. Not even seeing her product, just hearing her talk about PE Nation, PE Nation, PE Nation. I reckon every week without fail since listening to that episode, I see more and more chicks walking around in PE Nation gear. Yeah. And I'm like, it's a power of branding.
It is.
Never recognised it. I guarantee they all walked past me before. But now, just knowing what that brand is, knowing who she is and what she stands for, that pops when I see it walk past on a garment now.
Yeah.
It's crazy the way branding works.
Yeah, it is. And that's the big thing that we've noticed, that there are brands like, for instance, Zara, who are very influential in terms of actually how the products are styled and made. They don't really have branding. They don't have a logo on their stuff that says Zara on it, generally. Yeah. It's very, so unless you know that brand or like you've seen it on that site, you wouldn't really notice it. And we noticed that on our first products that we did, I sort of went against, which is like, the reason I didn't like our products at the very, on our first line. We went against everything I sort of was taught, and had logo on the front of the chest, had it piping all the way down the arms. We had another logo on the back, and it's good for the brand identity. It's too much. People don't want to be they want to be, it's okay if it's here or there, but not all over everywhere.
Well, it's funny you say that, right? Because I'm going to drop merch soon for the podcast. Yeah. And obviously, it's just a bit of branding. And my thing was, okay, I'm not a clothing label. It's not what I'm aspiring to be. But if I'm going to drop merch, what would make me wear merch? Yeah. Well, there's plenty of people I love, and I love listening to Joe Rogan's podcast. I wouldn't walk around with Joe Rogan's name on my shirt, though.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, why would someone walk around with my name on their shirt? Because I had a few people say, nah, just put your name on, own it. And I'm like, nah. Because no one's going to wear it. True. Yeah, I'm like, no one's going to wear it. The branding's got to be subtle. That's why I rebranded from the Bradley J. Driver experience to the experience with Bradley J. Driver. Yeah. And the only reason my name stayed in there is because if you search the experience on podcast platforms or apps, a whole heap of shows are going to pop up. So it's a way for people to find it a little easier. Yeah. But with a rebrand, it allows me to put the experience on a shirt with a little tagline underneath or a little quote. And that is more subtle branding that eventually people see it enough. I'll go, the experience, what's that? Or this first drop is just going to be the mum's the word drop, which is just the experience in quotations, great podcast, handsome host, mum. And it's just for me, it's not it's not too in your face, this is a podcast or it's merchandise, but that little review with podcast in it tells you exactly what it is. Yeah. It's a little bit lighthearted, but it's also subtle enough that you would wear it to a cafe to have a coffee, or you maybe throw a denim jacket over the top of it when you're out having a beer with your mates or you're out having a feed. Because I'm like, if people don't, and people go, but does it need to be that good? Well, if you want it to be branding, it has to be, right? Exactly. Because there's no use in just putting out a subpar product, even though it's only merch. If people aren't going to wear it, it's not branding.
No, exactly, yeah. No,
so I'm like, and I want to be able to wear it.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go to a cafe and wear it and it not be like, oh, fuck, this knob's just wearing his own kit.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if I was walking around with my name on my chest.
Yeah. It's even like that review you were saying, like, that just adds a bit of humour as well. Like, people look and they're like, oh, that's good. And we did the same with, on our social media, like, we literally went, oh, like, where would you wear these shorts? Because, like, obviously we're trying to, when we're rebranding, we're trying to show people, like, it's not just for the gym. We're trying to really address that. But we're trying to do it in a humorous way. And when we did it, like, people were saying, like, oh, lawn bowls, you know, like, I'd wear them in bed, like, sleeping, stuff like just things like that. And it was, like, funny. So, like, I got my, like, graphic designer to, like, edit them on, like, this old guy, like, wearing them lawn bowls.
That's
like,
sick.
it was just, like, little things like that. It was just, like, yeah, like, people will connect with that, you know, and that's where I want to go down more. Like, it doesn't need to be, it's not finance, it's not business. You don't need to be fully serious, you know, have a bit of fun with it as well.
Well, you know what? And I think in today's world too, I think so much is stepping away from just having to be professional all the time. In my last year of real estate, I never wore a suit. No. I was always in like jeans, a t-shirt, and like my bosses, shout out to the boys for just putting up with me, because sometimes they'd be like, fuck, you're towing the line now, bro, when I walked in white sneakers and like shorts. But I think for people, they just want personality. And personality is professionalism now, and authenticity.
Yeah, exactly. You're not like, I think people feel like a bit like you're looking down on them if you are rocking up in a suit and they're just wearing thongs and a pair of boardies, you know, like, so yeah, it's not always a bad thing to be that. And that's the same thing with the whole like tattoos and piercings and stuff. Like, you know, there's obviously a line, but it's even in that sort of industry, like, you can sort of start to get away with things more now.
Yeah. What's the line with tattoos, you reckon? Is it face?
Yeah, face. I don't know, like,
because I feel like,
on people, hey.
It's funny, like, I feel like for me, like, I love tattoos, and by now I would have had more if I had finance. If I had disposable income, I would have had more. And it's the same thing with, like, for me, same thing as I said before, I like fashion. Right now I just don't have disposable income until I make some smarter moves. Where I'm like, with tattoos, like, I've got a full arm, so you're going to see it unless I'm wearing long sleeves. I would 100% get the back of my neck done. I don't know about the front of my neck, though.
Yeah.
And if it was, it'd be smaller pieces, but definitely wouldn't touch my face. I feel like for me, face is the border, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if it was my face, and, you know, I got a face only a mother could love anyways, but I feel like I'd never hear the end of it. And I don't feel like that's the one where you, like, you want to be able to at least, like, if you wear a suit, I reckon, is kind of my thing. Like, if I'm in a tux, like, I look clean. Yeah,
exactly. And I don't know, like, everyone's sort of different, and you never sort of, I think nowadays, like, you can't, like, you know, you just can't expect what people like
100%.
Tattoos or anything. Like, for some people, it's just purely art. Like, mine is 100%. Like, on my forearm, like, but, you know, especially the last piece that I did, that was pretty much like.
What's the last page?
This one here.
Oh, that's sick. Who done that?
I got a guy up at Bondi Inc. to do it.
Yeah, that's an epic little piece. How'd you come up with that?
Well, so there was heaps of meaning behind it. I literally just, I don't know, like, obviously with tattoos, you are like, oh, it's gonna be on me forever, so you want to nail it, you know. But I saw like a rough design, and then I just sort of like played around with it, and then like we added, like, every dot there is pretty much like Australian Championship that I won when I was riding.
Oh, sick.
So, like, little thing like that, and then like there was a lot of other things in terms of like the whole spatial awareness and like mentality side, but like, it was cool for me because, like, it's not too in your face, it's not too obvious, but it's, you know. Bro,
it's a process when you're getting them designed, eh? Like, all of mine have meaning, and all of mine at the moment are statues or words.
Yeah, cool.
And for me, I like the statues. So I'm a real character, like, because I'm call myself a storyteller. I'd like to think that everyone else thinks I am too. But because I love story and I love characters, I've thought about getting, like, portraits done.
Yeah.
The thing with portraits that scares me is, like, imagine if you're a mad Bill Cosby fan back in the day. You had a Bill Cosby tattoo on your car. Like, fuck, that didn't age well.
Don't do that, eh?
Yeah, that didn't age well, eh? Like, that's the thing that scares me with portraits is I'm like, man, you got to be, like, confident in who you're picking, because, man, reputations can be tarnished pretty quickly these days. So
this is laser removal.
Yeah, 100%. And hey, if you're listening, you got a Bill Cosby tattoo, if I can book that shit in right now.
Get it right now.
Right. I reckon someone to do it for free for you. But my next one, I reckon, is Statue of Moses.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the sitting statue. And I'm not super religious. Like, I've spoken about it before on the podcast. I've got some religious rituals I do. Like, I pray before bed every night, like, just for my family. It's just something I can't go to sleep unless I do.
Yeah, that's good.
But a lot of my statues are quite religious because I think that's just what they are. Like, a lot of them symbolise something in religion. But I like the Statue of Moses because it's just symbol of a leader.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I feel like that's an opportunity that I have to lead with my story and, like, share my experiences that hopefully help others.
I think eventually, like, you know, as you more grow, like, well, even like how you helped out my sister when, like, she's going to start a podcast as well.
Yeah.
So she reached out, and, like, that's something that I'm, like, sure aspires to you and also aspires to me to be able to, like, you know, use your own, like, knowledge and experience to help others, you know, like, that's always going to be a big thing. Like, you know, I've spent a couple of years, obviously, like I said before, little mistakes you make along the way that aren't really mistakes, they're just learning curves. And, you know, it's very easy to say, you know, that it's a mistake and I regret that. But at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, well, you know, I learned so much from that.
Definitely.
And when you're not making a mistake, you're a bit like, oh, like, why is this going so well? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Sometimes it's a little bit of a mask of what's maybe to come.
Yeah, exactly. And even helping out with people, like, you know, it's important that while you know, give them a bit of, like, guidance and structure and make sure they don't make big mistakes, as well as that they still need to, you know,
figure some stuff out itself. Yeah, definitely. I want to finish with a few, I guess, quick fire questions. A little bit of fun, a little bit lighthearted, but also maybe a bit educational. First one being, what's a trend that isn't trending right now that you wish was in the fashion space?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know, hey. Look, like, my whole thing at the moment is vintage, and that thing's going off.
Yeah.
That vintage style's going off, so...
Can I say my thing? Recommendation for you? Male crops.
No, I just saw that. No, I did see that.
You know I'm about it. It's crop season, baby. And, you know, we've been cutting up some shirts and the boys been getting some crop. It's pretty bold. I get some looks, I ran a full half marathon yesterday in a crop top, and I definitely got some looks. Like, there's some people going, who is this just odd unit? But I really don't care too much. I'm a bit of a carefree character when it comes to fashion and just...
What's your thoughts about like leggings, like without shorts, or with shorts or out shorts for men?
I think it's sweet. I think it depends what you're wearing it for. I think it depends what you wear it with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, for me personally, like, probably wouldn't be a go, maybe because I don't reckon my abs are tight enough to get away with it. But also, like, I've seen some bits.
Zach bit off, you'd just be like, yeah, right,
yeah,
man, just do it.
Yeah, Zach could do it. Zach loves a pair of compression pants,
doesn't he?
Just every day, 365.
I mean, they can get away with it though, can't they?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But I reckon the crop is sick. It's such a throwback to, like, the 80s, 90s, and, like, the pro athletes, they get around it. Like, if DK Metcalf can, why can't a guy with 30 kilos of less lean muscle... not as good looking and as tall and athletic. Maybe we start the crop. Hey, 100%. 100%. That's my thing. And then another question for you is, for someone listening who has started maybe a fashion or clothing label or is in the retail space or product space of any nature, what is one thing that you would say isn't necessary to spend your money on and is just a big waste and maybe a common misconception?
Depending on how big they are, I guess. If they're just starting out, I think use your contacts, you know?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to use people around you that are, say, in the industry that you're starting or, you know, able to help. Even if they're not in the industry, they might just have a really good business mind, a sense, and might give you ideas. And that was one thing that I tried to, like, I'm just going to do this myself, like, try and stick away. And the more you do that, the more you realize, like, you're missing so many opportunities to have help. And, like,
is that just dropping the ego a bit too? Like,
100%.
Yeah,
it's definitely the thing of, like, I've got this, and then it's like, well, actually, hang on, like, just wait, like, you know, there are people that can help you here, like, instead of sitting on, you know, like, technology is not my forte. Like, I'm not great with, you know, Photoshop and stuff like that. So, you get people to help you with that.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'm always open to help people if they're wanting to start a clothing line, they want to start any sort of apparel stuff, or even just if they want advice on like anything business wise. Like, always happy to just have a chat. Always,
yeah, that's epic.
DM's always open.
That's epic. One more is, what's one lesson that you've learned, and what's one thing that's shaped your perspective or your mentality, or maybe changed it just a little bit throughout this journey of owning your own brand?
Like we spoke about before, I think that conception that like things will just take off.
Yeah.
And that people just see it as, like, even how you said about the following, like, realistically the last month, like, that's just flown up, like,
yeah,
from when we've done the photo shoot, when we've used influencers, things like that. And I think just having the perspective that it doesn't matter how many followers I have, or like the brand has, or anything like that, that we still a small business at the end of the day, and I don't want to get out of perspective with that. And yeah, I think even with the whole like budgeting side and that, you have to think like that, because if you think like that, then you use your money in a smart way, not just let's use it here and there.
You a bit of a spender, or are you pretty tight with your own dollars?
I put pretty well, like, I like used all like pretty well savings to start this, that I'd done with the finance side and before this, and I'm not like, I'll spend it in the areas I need to, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And where I see that there's actually gain for it. I think like if you just start spending money in areas that are like a bit of risk, like there's some reward in there, but there's also a bit of...
I even mean in personal life too, because one thing I've found is like, like I would have made over 100k last year if I just stayed in real estate. Obviously that wasn't my passion, so I walked away just before the money got good. Smart timing, eh? Fucking hell. But for me, money's not the metric. It's not the North Star, sort of like purpose and happiness and doing what I love is. And I've found probably a lesson that I had to learn is you really need to adjust your spending habits to what your goals are.
Oh, definitely.
So I was having way too many brekkies out.
Yeah.
Just living too much of a comfortable lifestyle and not appreciating how much that money needed to last me whilst I grinded and hustled. And that's why times are a little bit stressful at the moment. Yeah. But hopefully with the sale of my asset, it relieves the stress. And fingers crossed, shout out to my mum for, steering the ship there on the sale. But, she's a real estate agent, by the way, for anyone that wants to know. Just hit her up if you want to sell a house or buy a house. But yeah, like I think it's so important to... You've got to be humble. You've got to humble yourself if you want to jump into this life of business ownership or small business or start a brand or start a platform or a show, because you can't be living that life like you're making a stable wage.
Oh, no, definitely. And like I said, I've just moved up to the Sunshine Coast, and so, living at home it's just, you need to put your money, like you can't just be going out, like you said, and just, buying brekkie, lunch, dinner every day. Like, you sort of still need to enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
that,
balance, isn't it?
Exactly. And I mean, when I look at it, like, I can like afford to go out and have a brekkie or a lunch if I'm not going, like, if, a lot of people my age would be going out on a Saturday night, spending a couple $100,
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah, for me, it's very much like we'll put it where I see, enjoyment, but also like in a smart way to be able to live, comfortably. Yeah.
In a perfect picture, where's Colossal Culture in 5 years' time?
Well, it's on you. You're wearing it.
Yeah. 100%.
No, it's, Colossal is definitely, so it's not just on the online retail platform. I'd love to have our own stores.
I like that. Bit of brick and mortar, eh?
Yeah. And one thing I have learned about the store side though is it's very much an advertising marketing tool.
Yep.
You like walk into Nike, you won't find most of their high end or like their new stuff, because they're just trying to sell the rest of the stuff they haven't sold online.
Yeah. But just a change room too, isn't it? Just to try on, fit on, buy the colour or the size you want online. Yeah,
well, if you notice, like you walk into a lot of shopping centres of that, you walk down the escalators, generally it's a Nike.
Yeah.
Or like a, bigger sort of company.
Yeah, a JB Hi-Fi.
Exactly.
They're great at that. Yeah.
Just to be seen,
Yeah.
And I think as well as that, I'd like to be on other platforms in terms of other, selling with other companies as well.
Yeah, cool. Bit of collaboration.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think like I even saw with Earls, they did things like G-Shock and that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't personally come out and do watches myself.
Yeah.
But if you collab with someone, that could be something really cool to do. So yeah, definitely just little collaborations like that, working with athletes. I think a lot of athletes get left behind in terms of sponsorships. Like obviously the big sports get plenty of money in that, but I'd love to support people that, or athletes that are, you know, potentially doing it a little bit tough. But I mean, like I'm from the cycling background. Like I've got a few mates who are, you know, going to the Olympics this year, and they're working as a pizza delivery driver. You know what I mean?
Insane, right?
Insane. And you're just like, those sort of people, like, they're training just as hard, they're working just as hard as all these other people, and yeah, it's the sport, it's the advertising, you know?
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Definitely. Well, hey, if you've been listening to this, get around the CC, Colossal Culture. I want to make sure that everyone listening not only goes and follows and buys from the brand and supports it. And, you know, even like, I say this all the time, you don't have to buy or spend money with someone to support them. Like, share it around to your family and friends. Like, follow them on socials, share their stuff. Get around the comments. Like, just be supportive. It's, you know, it's a huge help when you're starting something from the ground up. Where do people find you on socials?
So on Instagram, it's colossal.culture, Facebook, and then our websites and our links in our bios. The other thing with it as well is I really personally because I'm in the actual, I'm looking at the company every day, and I've got people around me that are looking at the company every day. If you see something from our side that you're like, oh, like this would be cool to see, or this would be like from us or anything, just message us, let us know, and you know we're definitely open to listening to everyone and getting everyone involved.
I love it. I'm going to make sure that all those social tags, the website, everything is in the show description. If you've listened and you loved it, let's be honest, you did. You all love the experience. Bit of arrogance there, but it's needed, it's necessary, because we want to take this show to the next level. You know, I call out the guy that we're calling American Driver now, aka Joe Rogan. The experience here down under is coming for you. Why? Because we love you. We're about everything you're doing, and I love seeing people who are super successful on the global scale. I'm chasing after them. I'm following in their footsteps, and hopefully creating some really positive messaging and sharing some great stories for you all to be entertained by, educated by, and inspired to go and do amazing things in your life. So if you love the show, obviously subscribe, share it around with family and friends. That means a whole lot and goes a whole long way in helping the show grow to the next stage. But also leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple Podcast app and comment on YouTube. Do all that good stuff. Thank you so much for listening to what will be episode 78 of the show. Or no, episode 79, I think, which is super exciting. One of the two. Regardless, get around it. Mitch, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, brother. Take it easy.